English Easy Podcast.
Hello, learners. Welcome back to English Easy Podcast, your partner to learning English. Imagine sitting in a meeting or a classroom right now. The person next to you is, smiling, nodding, and taking perfect notes.
Right. They look completely in control.
Exactly. But statistically speaking, there is a very high chance that person is actually running on fumes. They are like a smartphone battery that says 1% on the screen, while a dozen hidden background apps are draining whatever power is left.
Yeah, that is such a great analogy.
And yet, when you ask them, hey, how are you today? What do they say? They give you the automatic reflex. I'm fine, thanks.
We all do it. I mean, in English-speaking cultures especially, how are you isn't actually a question asking for emotional data.
It's just a greeting.
Exactly. It functions purely as a social greeting. It is the verbal equivalent of a handshake. If someone gives a brutally honest answer like, well, I'm actually having a minor existential crisis today, it completely disrupts the entire social protocol.
Right, people don't know how to handle that.
They really don't. So people become incredibly skilled at hiding massive amounts of exhaustion or burnout behind a very convincing, polite smile. They just don't want to disrupt the flow of the workplace or the school day.
And that brings us to our mission for today's deep dive. We are unpacking the English language of empathy. Because for our listeners, especially intermediate learners navigating these delicate emotional conversations in a second language, it can feel, like walking through a minefield.
Oh, absolutely. It's intimidating.
You aren't just translating vocabulary, you're trying to translate nuance and tone and care without sounding robotic. So we are going to look at how to break past that I'm fine reflex, the psychology behind reading people, and the specific phrases you can use to actually support a friend or coworker.
To understand how to break past that I'm fine shield, we first have to look at why people put it up in the first place.
Okay, why do they?
It usually comes down to a fear of being a burden. The psychology of the workplace or, a busy academic environment tells us that everyone else is stressed too. We tell ourselves, I shouldn't bother them with my problems.
Yeah, I've definitely felt that way.
Right. Keeping all that background processing running inside your head takes a massive cognitive toll. It leads to what psychologists call high-functioning depletion.
Which, for our learners, basically means you look fine on the outside, but your brain is completely exhausted on the inside.
Exactly. Which means we can't just rely on what people say, we have to look at what they do. And the key to spotting that high-functioning depletion is understanding a person's baseline.
But wait, if someone is actively trying to hide their stress, aren't we just guessing? I mean, I can't read minds.
You don't need to read minds if you read the data, and the data is their baseline. A baseline is simply the established pattern of a person's normal behavior.
Okay, so how they act on a regular Tuesday.
Yes. You can only detect a shift in someone's mood if you've spent enough time observing what their normal looks like. It is about pattern recognition. Once you know the pattern, you watch for deviations.
Okay, let's make this concrete. Think of a colleague or a classmate you know well. What are the specific behavioral clues that their baseline has shifted, even if they're still smiling?
There are three major physical tells. The first is a shift in eye contact. If your normally outgoing coworker suddenly starts addressing their shoes or intensely staring at their monitor when you walk by, their defense mechanisms are up.
Oh, that makes sense. They're avoiding interaction.
Exactly. Second, listen for heavy sighs. A sigh isn't just breathing. Neurologically, it is the body's attempt to reset your respiratory rate when you're under acute stress.
Wow, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, if someone is sighing frequently, their brain is literally trying to offload physical tension. And third, they start canceling plans.
Right. Cancel plans. There was a story in our research that perfectly illustrates this. It was about a colleague who was famous in their office for being the ultimate team player, always bringing in donuts, inbox always at zero, organizing all the Friday lunches.
A classic overachiever.
Totally. But then, over the course of a month, they started quietly backing out of those lunches. They stopped suggesting ideas in meetings. On the surface, they were still smiling and saying, I'm fine, but they were completely burned out.
They were isolating themselves to conserve whatever tiny bit of energy they had left. And that is the critical moment. When you notice the sighing or the withdrawal, you have a choice to make as a friend.
But honestly, if someone is already hiding behind their baseline at work, approaching them feels risky. Like if I walk up to a coworker and say, you look really depressed, what's wrong? I feel like I'm going to just trigger their defense mechanism.
Oh, you definitely will.
Especially in a second language. There's a real fear of sounding too blunt or intrusive.
That approach fails because it's an interrogation. When you ask what's wrong, you are demanding an explanation, which just adds to their cognitive load. The trick is to pivot from formal interrogation to casual observation.
Casual observation. What does that look like?
Instead of asking them to explain themselves, you just gently present a fact.
Give me an example. What is the alternative to "how are you" or "what's wrong"?
A great casual phrase to use is, "You seem a little quiet today. Is everything all right?"
You seem a little quiet today. I like that because it is not an accusation. It's just like holding up a mirror.
Exactly. It completely removes the pressure. It signals to the person, I am paying enough attention to you to notice a change.
Because when people are burned out, they feel incredibly invisible.
Yes, showing them that they are seen without demanding a detailed report immediately lowers their guard.
Let us actually demonstrate what this sounds like, because tone is everything here. Let's do a quick role play. I want our learners to listen to the difference between the interrogation approach and the observation approach. First, the bad way. I will be the well-meaning but blunt coworker. Ready? Ready. Hey, you look really stressed out today. Why are you so quiet? What's going on?
Nothing. I'm fine. I just have a lot of emails. I'm fine.
Right. Total shutdown. Now, let's try the observation approach. The tone should be softer and your body language should be relaxed, maybe standing side by side rather than hovering over their desk. Ready?
Go for it.
Hey, I was just looking over the new project timeline and, well, you seem a little quiet today. Is everything all right?
Oh, yeah. Just, feeling a bit overwhelmed with the deadline. But I'm okay.
Now notice that pushback. You still said, "I'm okay." The "I'm fine" reflex is so strong. So if I know you're still downplaying it, should I push harder? Do I say, "Come on, I know you're lying, tell me the truth"?
No, pushing harder is the worst thing you can do. You cannot force vulnerability. If you try to pry the door open, they will just build a thicker wall.
So what's my job then?
If they give you the "I'm fine" shield, your only job is to leave the door open for later.
The sources suggest using the phrase, "Okay, well, I'm always here if you want to talk." But I have to challenge that. Doesn't that sound a bit like a cliche?
It can, yeah.
Like, if a coworker said that to me, I might think they're just reading off a generic HR script. How do we make that actually sound genuine?
That is a very fair point. To avoid sounding like an automated response, you tie it to a specific action or a shared history.
Like what?
Instead of the generic, "I'm always here," you might say, "Okay, well, I'm grabbing coffee at 3 today. Let me know if you want to take a walk."
Oh, that's good.
Or, "Okay, well, you know where to find me if you just want to vent." You are giving them a concrete, low-stakes off-ramp. You make the offer, and then you step back.
And do they usually take the offer?
Often, they will process that offer, and maybe 2 days later, they'll reach out.
But what if stepping back means you aren't physically there? We've been talking about face-to-face interactions, but a lot of our communication happens remotely now.
Very true.
If a friend is at a different school or a coworker is working from home, ambushing them on a video call feels really intense. Is there a way to lower the stakes even further?
This is where reaching out digitally becomes incredibly useful. Texting gets a bad reputation for being impersonal, but in the context of empathy, a text message is powerful specifically because it is asynchronous.
Meaning you don't have to reply right away.
Exactly. Face-to-face communication requires immediate mental processing. A text gives them the luxury of time.
Going back to that story of the burned-out coworker, the one who was always organizing lunches but suddenly stopped. A friend of theirs noticed the shift but didn't want to confront them at the office.
Right.
So they sent a completely random, low-pressure text on a Tuesday night. It just said, "Hey man, you've been working so hard lately. I'm really proud of you." And reading that text in the privacy of their own home made the coworker cry with absolute relief.
It worked because the text asked for absolutely nothing in return. It was pure validation. The sender didn't even realize how critical that timing was.
It acted like a circuit breaker for their anxiety.
Yes, it reminded them that their effort was visible.
For our listeners wanting to do this, a brilliant, simple phrase to use is just, "Hey, I was just thinking about you." That is it. But there is a secret weapon you can add to the end of your texts. A phrase that completely transforms the dynamic.
Yes. The ultimate empathy phrase to add to your message is, "No need to reply."
No need to reply. Let's analyze why that works so well.
Yeah.
If I'm stressed and someone texts me asking how I am, I suddenly feel this obligation to draft a response that sounds, appropriately grateful but not overly dramatic.
Yeah.
It becomes a chore.
Precisely. You are already suffering from cognitive overload. By adding "no need to reply," you bypass the brain's executive functioning centers that manage social obligations.
You're giving them an out.
You are giving them a gift with no strings attached. They get to feel the warmth of your care without the tax of having to formulate an English response when they are completely exhausted.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
But it does raise a question about phone calls. If texting is so great because it lowers the cognitive load, when is it actually better to pick up the phone? Because calling someone these days feels like a massive commitment.
You reserve phone calls for when you know the baseline has shifted significantly, and you want to convey a warmth that text simply cannot carry. Text is safe, but the human voice carries nuance, empathy, and sincerity.
But how do you handle the fact that it feels like a trap? If I answer the phone and think we're about to have a 45-minute deep emotional dive, I might just let it go to voicemail.
So you set a boundary immediately. A fantastic phrase to learn is, "Hey, I only have a minute, but I wanted to hear your voice."
I only have a minute, but I wanted to hear your voice. That is incredibly disarming.
It really is. It makes the person feel special, but it puts a strict 60-second timer on the interaction. Neither of you feels trapped. You are creating a safe space for them, even if it's just for 1 minute.
Let's transition to that concept, actually the safe space. Let's say your text or your 1-minute phone call works. Your friend feels comfortable, they open up, and suddenly they're telling you about a really difficult, messy situation.
Right.
As the listener, I'll admit my biggest flaw here. My immediate reaction is panic. My instinct is to become a life coach. I want to jump in with a 10-step plan, offer solutions, and just fix the problem.
That is the most universal reaction. We care about our friends, and human beings are problem-solving creatures.
So why is it bad?
Because jumping in to fix things often backfires. When you immediately offer solutions, you are subtly invalidating their capability. You are signaling, "This is easily fixable. Why are you so upset?"
Oh, wow. I never thought about it like that.
Yeah, friends don't need a life coach. They just need a safe space. And a safe space is an environment free of judgment and free of immediate solutions.
So if I have to suppress my urge to fix it, what is my role? What do I say instead of, "Hey, have you tried doing this?"
Your role is validation. Validation is the act of acknowledging that their emotional response is justified. A highly effective phrase is simply, "I am so sorry, that sounds really hard."
I am so sorry, that sounds really hard. It feels almost too simple. Does that actually help?
It does, because of how mental bandwidth works. When someone is dealing with a crisis, their mental RAM is entirely consumed by the stress. They feel like they are crazy for being this upset.
So you're confirming they aren't crazy.
Exactly. When you validate them, when you confirm that the situation is legitimately difficult, you free up their mental RAM. You aren't solving the problem, but by acknowledging its weight, you make the emotional burden manageable.
Now, setting up that safe space isn't just about the words you use, it's about the physical environment. If I want a friend to open up, my first thought is to take them to a coffee shop, sit across from them at a tiny table and look them deep in the eyes. But our sources say that is a terrible idea.
It is a terrible idea because direct, sustained eye contact under emotional duress triggers the amygdala. That's the part of the brain responsible for the fight or flight response. Sitting face-to-face across a table feels like an interrogation. It activates a predator-prey dynamic in our nervous system.
Wow, so where should we go instead?
The absolute best environments for deep emotional conversations are side-by-side activities. Going for a walk or driving together in a car.
The car, yes. Let's talk about the magic of the car ride. Why does that work so well?
It works because of parallel gaze and forward motion. In a car, you are both looking out the windshield. There is no direct eye contact, which immediately lowers the threat level in the brain.
And there's usually music playing, right?
Exactly, you can play soft music.
Right.
Furthermore, the physical sensation of moving forward actually helps the brain process lateral thoughts. The silence isn't awkward because you are occupied by watching the road. It creates an almost hypnotic environment where the truth just naturally spills out.
That makes total sense. While we're talking about the environment and the mood, a question that comes up a lot is the use of humor. If my friend is crying in the passenger seat of my car, is it insensitive to make a joke? Will they think I'm not taking their pain seriously?
Humor is a phenomenal tool for empathy, provided you follow one strict rule: you never punch down and you never make fun of their pain.
So how do you use it?
Laughter is a biological reset button. It cuts through cortisol and releases endorphins. But the humor must be gentle, and ideally, it should be self-deprecating.
Self-deprecating, meaning making fun of yourself.
Right.
Because that levels the power dynamic. If they are feeling low, you share a moment where you also failed. Like, I know you're dealing with a nightmare project right now, but if it makes you feel any better, I completely ruined my presentation this morning.
Perfect example.
I spilled an entire black coffee down my white shirt right before the big marketing meeting, and I had to wear a heavy winter coat inside all day just to hide it.
Exactly. Telling a silly story like that reminds your friend that life is still absurd, messy, and joyful. It injects a tiny bit of light into the room without minimizing the dark space they're currently in.
Okay, we have spent a lot of time talking about how to be the listener. Let's completely flip the script. What if you are the one who is struggling? What if you are the person hiding behind the "I'm fine" reflex because you're terrified of looking weak?
That is the harder side of the equation. We are conditioned to view asking for help as a failure. But reaching out is actually an act of immense bravery. It is the active choice to fight back against isolation.
And for our intermediate English learners listening right now, asking for help in a second language adds a whole extra layer of anxiety.
Oh, I'm sure it does.
You might worry about finding the right words or sounding overly dramatic. So I want to pause here and organically break down some specific nuanced vocabulary from our sources. Let's practice the actual words native speakers use to soften these difficult conversations.
Good idea. Let's start with how to initiate the conversation. Instead of saying, "I am having a crisis," a very natural, softer phrase to use is, "I'm having a rough day."
A rough day. I really like that word, rough. For our learners, it's textural. It implies friction, but not disaster. So you might say, "Hey, I'm having a rough day. Do you have some time to chat later?"
Notice how polite that is. You are stating your emotional state, but you are still respecting their time by asking if they are available.
Right. What's another phrase?
Another fantastic phrase to use when you are on the receiving end, comforting someone who is struggling to find their words, is simply, "Take your time."
Take your time. That phrase is like a pressure release valve. It removes the social rush. It tells your friend, "I am not in a hurry. You don't need to speed up your sadness to make me comfortable."
Exactly. And there is also a very specific psychological shift in using the word manageable.
Manageable. How so?
Well, when you are isolated, your problems look infinite, but the goal of sharing them isn't necessarily to solve them instantly, it is to make them manageable.
Manageable, meaning capable of being handled. It implies that the heavy weight is still there, but now you have the grip strength to carry it. It changes the perspective from "I am defeated" to "I can navigate this."
Precisely. And perhaps the most critical vocabulary shift in the entire language of empathy is the shift from the word "you" to the word "we."
Oh, this is vital. If a friend is hurting, our instinct might be to say, "You will get through this. You are strong." But what does that actually imply?
It implies that they are on an island. You will get through this. This means they have to do the work alone. But simply changing one pronoun changes the entire emotional landscape. We will get through this.
We will get through this. It's a promise of teamwork. It says, "I am standing in the trenches right beside you."
It bridges the gap between those isolated islands, and that is really the core of what we're discussing today.
I want to ask you, the listener, a direct question. Who is your safe space person? When you are having a rough day, whose baseline do you trust enough to drop your "I'm fine" mask? Think about who that person is for you right now.
And if you want, share it in the comments wherever you are listening to this. Acknowledging the people who support you is a powerful way to practice gratitude.
And that leads us to a very practical challenge for you today. Think of one person in your life, at work, in your classes, or in your family whose baseline has shifted lately. Someone who has been a little quieter than usual, or who's been sighing a bit too much.
You don't have to be a life coach. You don't have to fix their problems.
You just have to be a friend who notices.
Use one of the phrases we discussed today. Send them a text that says, "Hey, I was just thinking about you." No need to reply.
Learning English isn't just about mastering grammar rules or passing a proficiency exam. It is about connecting with human beings around the world. It is about building bridges. I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. What if the simple low-pressure message you send today using these exact phrases in your second language is the exact reason someone decides they have the strength to keep going? Words have immense power. Use them to build people up. So the next time someone pushes your "How are you" button, don't just act like a robot. Break the machinery, skip the "I'm fine," and start a real conversation.